So if you watched the UFC 25th anniversary show in Denver, Colorado, two things stood out. Obviously, the main event, an amazing fight, amazing comeback by Yair Rodriguez against the Korean Zombie. But the other thing on the card that really stood out was how well Cowboy Cerrone looked against Mike Perry at welterweight. He said it was going to be his last fight at welterweight. Kind of happy for that, moving down to a better weight division. But the thing about him looking so good that night, some people might think that it is because the motivation behind what was going on. Obviously, he moved camps. He's no longer with Jackson Winklejohn. Winklejohn being in the opposing corner with Mike Perry had a little bit of bad blood right there. You might have thought that was the motivation. That was the key to the performance that had Cowboy performing so well. That's not it. I don't believe that's it. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what it was. The thing about Cowboy Cerrone is he showed that he's a pretty emotional guy. He gets emotional before fights. He's very close to his grandmother, and he shows those emotions. He wears them. He's a very genuine guy. He doesn't, try to be somebody that he's not. Let me take you back to when I fought Mike Perry, 2016. Mike Perry is the guy that gets in your head. He brings it, a lot of intensity, a lot of back and forth. He got in my head, I'll admit it. He got in my head a little bit. And when me and Mike Perry went to weigh in, Mike Perry, he'd been talking trash for weeks up into the fight. And so when we go to weigh in, he takes a picture of the Polaroid and hands it to me. I was having none of it. I slapped it out of his hand. And we kind of got into it, and they broke us up. And I remember that night I went back to my hotel, and I was talking to my son on Skype, and my son's name is Cage. Cage asked, he said, "Dad, why'd you push that guy?" And I didn't really know how to explain it. Like, the animosity, the build up, the back and forth. And so I just told him, I just said simply, I said, "Cage, he's a bully." I said, "Mike was a bully, and I'm not going to tolerate bullies." And that was just a simple way of me explaining it to my son. Maybe I was making like a life example for him. I've got nothing against Mike Perry. He was just doing his thing to sell the fight, and that's his style. But I was going to use it as an example to show my son something. And so, fast forward the next night, I'm on deck. Mike Perry is about to walk out, and it's a real intense It's a real intense holding cell where they have us kind of shadow boxing, waiting for them to call our name before we walk out of the curtain. Mike Perry went first. And then I remember my coach, my Muay Thai coach, Julio, kind of said to me, pulled me aside and said, "Show Cage what you do to bullies. Do this for Cage." And it just clicked, man. I mean, I have never felt that kind of rush, that kind of fire inside of me. Because I remember telling them the night before how I felt about this, and I wanted to show Cage, make an example, just to give him confidence with this fight. So obviously, the fight went well for me that night, and I won. Fast forward again to my last fight. My last fight against my buddy Ben Saunders. It was a great fight. We got fight of the night. That was the first fight that Cage, my son, has been to live to watch me fight. He came to the UFC, sat in the arena in UFC Orlando, and I remember walking into the octagon and getting in the octagon, and normally there's a very nervous tension. Mike Perry talked about that nervous energy before, when a fight starts and your corner is telling you to go, 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 but there's that nervous energy that it's hard to break through until you get cracked, until you get punched. I could literally look over, and I remember seeing my wife and my son sitting there looking directly at me while I'm inside of the octagon. And that feeling I had never had before. I had never had that feeling. When you have a kid, when you have a child, even if you're scared when they're around, it wipes the fear away, because you want to naturally, instinctively, you want to show comfort to them. You want to put them at ease, and so you're more confident. You're fearless. And having my son there that night, it lit a fire in me. And I remember waiting for the bell to ring, because I had that nervous energy that was normally there was gone for the first time in my career. I was ready for the bell to ring and just go at it with Ben. And so I remember after that fight thinking, I want my family at every one of my fights from now on, because it gave me such confidence to perform so well in front of them. And you know, you're not going to win them all. But having that confidence is a tremendous factor. It's a tremendous advantage that if you could use that to your advantage, why not? So take it back to the point of this story. Cowboy Cerrone has been in thousands of fights. Maybe not thousands, but it seems like it. He fights so many times. But this was the first time Cowboy, as a new father, has his kid with him. He said on the microphone that the same thing. One of his coaches showed him a picture of his son before the fight, and that was such a smart move on the hand of his coaches, on the hand of his cornerman, knowing that Cowboy is an emotional guy, and that's the kind of thing that gets him going, and it had him so motivated. You saw how confident he was walking out. You saw how great he performed during the fight with the armbar finish, and having his son there gave him that advantage. Cowboy's moving back down to 155 now. I believe he's going to be, even though it's killer's row at 55. It's the same thing as 70. They're just bigger. The guys are bigger. So Cowboy will have a little bit more of the height advantage, size advantage at 55, and this newfound confidence in having his son there that has been kind of one of the ups and downs of Cowboy's career, man. Sometimes he's a little too emotional, a little too nervous, and we don't see the best out of him. I think this is going to help. So you ask me why Cowboy looks so good against Mike Perry, that's why. Being a father, having your son there, wanting to show and lead by example, he did it that night. I like to see more great performances out of Cowboy.